There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my Other's Keeper. I want to have you help me welcome my friend Tess. Hi, Tess. So
Hello.
tell us, first of all, since like a million people in two say your name wrong, how do you say your name?
Yes, that is correct. It is Tess Bame, not Bohm. Probably years ago, the umlaut over the A or over the O was active, but it is Bame.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so we are here to talk about all things bariatric.
There's a
Um,
lot.
there's a lot. There really is. And of all of the people that I know, Tess is probably the person who's been around the most variety of procedures. Maybe not had them personally, but I mean, she's been around them. She knows them. She's studied them. She's really wise in the ways of bariatric and weight loss and all of that other stuff. So I'm really, really grateful that you could be here today, Tess. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Well,
it.
I appreciate you inviting me because it is a topic that is not discussed as much anymore. I really get tired of people saying we took the easy way out.
Oh, yeah.
That just floors me when you think about the struggle. I checked today and I was like, oh, I'm now officially down 277 pounds. So
Wow.
there was nothing easy about any of that ever.
No,
And,
no.
when you think about all the things that happen, and people say, oh, the side effects, like everything is so dangerous. I don't ever consider these side effects some of the issues that I have. I feel like it's more, this is part of the puzzle. I knew it when I started. Sometimes I didn't know it was going to be as extreme as it was.
Mhm.
But, people get C. difficile and they're like, oh my God, what's happening? One of
Yeah.
the biggest things I can say about this whole process is that knowledge is power.
Yes.
We see people talk about things on the board and they say, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's happening. But there's also people that are not even there yet that are saying, I need to know before I go. And
Yep.
that for me was a huge thing. If knowledge is power, I was never scared a step of this because I was like, this is supposed to happen. This is my next stage. This is going to happen. Oh my God, I have bones. Like you just, there's so many things that happen to you and you just don't know how extreme it's going to be.
Yeah. That's right. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And for me, when I don't know, I feel really nervous about something. I like to be able to research things. That's something that I've always been really good at is finding out the why.
Right.
But since I started with my husband 30 something years ago, he's an engineer. He's like, yeah, you get three quotes on everything. You
Right.
find out, you research everything. So when
Yeah.
we talked about getting bariatric surgery, I was all gung ho. It's like, okay, I know this, and this, and I can go to Mexico next month and do it.
Right.
And he's like,
You were ready.
no, 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 let's slow down just a touch.
Right.
So, yeah, he had a lot more researching he wanted to do before
Yeah.
he was comfortable with me going under the knife or something like that.
Right.
So, what
Well,
have you learned?
part of it is because there is some fear. Like they
Yes,
don't know if you're going to make it. And
yes,
this surgery is no different than any other surgery. There is a possibility that you will die, and you need to know that.
yeah.
Every doctor has a mortality rate. And so I say to people when they go out of the country or wherever they're doing, what is the doctor's mortality rate? Dr. Marcassini has had 3 deaths in probably 10,000 patients. That's
Wow,
pretty low. And
that's a little low.
And he will tell you, this person here, this is what they passed away from. This person here, and he never hid anything from us. And that's why going to Brazil and being that first Canadian patient was so exciting because I was not scared in the least.
Okay,
He
so you mentioned that you went to Brazil. Can you tell us why you went to Brazil, please?
Okay, it's a long sorted story, and I'll try to keep the
That's
political
okay.
stuff out of it because I don't think that helps anybody now. But what happened was that I was on the waiting list in back in 2000, between 2000 and 2003. And I knew back then, I want to say when I was only a couple 100 pounds, that this is what I wanted. And the partner I had at the time said, I don't want you to have weight loss surgery because you're going to get all skinny and like leave me. And I'm
Mhm,
like, really? So,
mhm.
of course, I didn't do it. Didn't do it, didn't do it. And I knew I wanted to many years ago. So, anyways, and I mean, I think we fall into that trap of like, you're fine, like everything is good. And then you feel like it is good and it's not good, right? And
Yeah.
then got, moved back, whatever. I was living in Saskatoon at the time. And, things changed and all of a sudden he was gone. I'm like, oh, I just lost all of this, what I wanted to do in my life. And good riddance, but regardless. But
As long
anyway,
as
so it was on.
207 pounds lost immediately. So there you go.
I know, right? That was the first bit. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I moved to Regina, got this job, and I was like, I still want to do this. Met some people, met a gentleman that was on the list, and I was like, oh, I want to be on that list. So I got on the list. And I just started working and researching and things like that. And this is how the SBSG came about, because I said, who do we talk to? Where do we get support?
Okay. What
Like,
is the SBSG?
so originally it was the Saskatchewan Bariatric Surgery Support Group. And over
Okay.
the years, we've changed to SBSG, to Saskatchewan Bariatric Support Group, because we support people of size, no matter if they're no-op, post-op, or pre-op. And there are no-ops because they've gone through the whole program and went, hey, I just lost 70 pounds and I don't need to have surgery. I'm going to keep going. And we have had successful people. And that's amazing. Like, good for you. But I'm not one of those people. I'd love to see that success in people. I love it. But not all of us can do it, right? I was
Mhm.
I was 464 pounds my day of surgery. That is not a person who can go on Weight Watchers and do it by themselves. That
No.
doesn't mean there aren't a few that can. I'm not saying that. But for me, it was not the answer. So, anyways, I'm on this wait list, and my friend in the program was, they were very different back then in the program. If you
Mm.
didn't go to the meetings and you didn't do this and this and this and this, you couldn't have surgery. And so he wasn't going to anything. And I said, I'm not comfortable with you having surgery. So that coming year, he turned 40, and I had a surprise birthday party for him because the following week he was having surgery. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited for you. Like, I'm going to let you go first and see how things go. And then he passed away.
Before or during or
So
after?
he had his surgery and never came out of the hospital. So
Oh
lots
no.
of things. Number one, non-compliant. Okay.
No.
He drank the water in the hospital. He sucked on face cloths. Like, we tried everything we could do to change this. And I was so scared. So, of course, he got an infection, right? And it just never stopped from there. Anyway, he never made it out. And I was like so scared for me because I wasn't that far off from where he was in weight. I
Right.
knew that I would be compliant though, because I had been researching and been learning. Like, he would phone me and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I'm like, oh, it's this. Like, and but he just didn't comply. He didn't do what they told him. He wasn't following the rules. We had to call the hospital multiple times and say, hey, he's drinking the water out of the tap. Can you guys, anyways, lots of things happened. And I just was like, you know what, if he's not going to make it here, I'm not going to make it here. And I just wasn't comfortable anymore. So my husband and I started researching and said, what do I do? Well, I had been researching, and I'd been on lots of bariatric boards around the world. And I had been talking to a lady that had gone to Spain, and she said, oh my God, Spain is so great, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay, I picked Spain or Brazil. And I had been talking to patients all over the world that had gone to Brazil. And I thought, well, what the heck? So I made a decision. I said, okay, Spain it is. And that night, a lady messaged me and said, don't go to Spain. They
Oh.
still use the IV bottles, the upside down bottles. Like, they're not advanced. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Like, this was terrible, right? So what I did was I said, I'm going to phone this doctor in Brazil and just see what happens. See if he
Mhm.
answers, whatever. So I phoned him in the morning, no answer. That night, my husband and I were having supper and the phone rings and he's like, hello, it's Dr. Marcassini. And I'm like, what? He said, oh, you called earlier. This number is on my phone. You called earlier, but I'm sorry I didn't answer. I was speaking at a conference. And I was like,
That's a
what?
good sign right there.
Like, yeah, like the
Yeah.
doctor's calling me at home and he's telling me he's sorry he didn't answer my phone because he was talking. I'm like, okay. So I told him what I wanted, said what I was planning to do. And I said, how long is your wait list? He said, I could probably put you in next week or so if you get all your testing done. I'm like, what? So I thought,
Wow.
wow, look at that. So then I went to my doctor right away and I said, you're not going to believe this, but I can get in there and I can go. And so what we did was, my doctor was amazing. She said, I support you. She pushed her staff to get me all the testing that needed to be done. Now, he did say to me, I
Yeah.
can do everything here in the pre-op stage. And then I
Yeah.
thought, what happens if I go all the way to Brazil and I don't pass something or they
Mhm.
can't do it? What
Yeah.
happens then? Then I'm
Yeah.
like dumbfounded. I'm like, I can't just go on a holiday to Brazil.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I said, you know what? I want to come to you, but I want this testing done. And it was a good thing I did because in my pre op testing, they found that my heart was enlarged. My left ventricle was like way huge. And realistically, the doctor said you could have died at any moment. Like your
Oh
heart was
my
so big.
word.
So they sent me to a heart specialist right away, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "I think once you lose the weight, your heart will return to normal size because, like, medically, physically, whatever, there's nothing wrong with your heart." And I'm like, "Okay, so let's see what happens."
So was it
So,
visceral fat around your heart that was so big, or was it the heart
no, he
itself?
said the
The
heart was
muscle?
just enlarged, like the muscle was
Really?
enlarged, yeah, because of the
Hmm.
strain. Well, it's
Mm.
465 pounds.
Mhm.
Right? Like you can't be that weight and expect that life is good. So,
Yeah.
anyways, so he started seeing me on a regular basis, but I went and I had surgery, and it was funny because I never was scared a moment. Now, I had a book that said when you prepare for surgery, as you're going under, one of the most important things about going under, you say, I trust my surgeon, I trust this process, everything will be just fine. And I
Mhm.
remember I remember going in, whatever, big, great big lights above you. And all I remember was Dr. Marcassini coming out and slapping my wrist and saying, Tess, Tess, wake up, Tess. And I'm like, I think I'm alive. Like, I remember that. And I was like, I think I made it. Like, oh my God. So then I woke up
Wow.
and he's like, everything was great. And I'm like, oh my God, I made it. So I was never scared because I was so educated, right? And I
Yeah.
knew exactly what was going to happen. And I knew the first thing to do was get my butt out of bed as soon as I could. It's such a mistake that we make because
Mm.
we're large, it's
Mhm.
hard to move, right?
Mhm.
And so they had the physical therapist in my room that night, making me, I don't know if they still do this, but you blow on that thing and the bubble, like the bubbles rise up,
Oh,
the little
yep, yep,
balls.
yep.
They had me doing that night. They had physical therapy banging on my back. And finally I went, I think I just need to get up. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, let's go. So we got up, had a walk, just a little one. They said, okay, that's enough. The next day, and now I was at open surgery. So
Mhm.
I was cut from like here to here, like all the way down.
Tip to tail.
Yeah. And so the way they did surgery there, I mean, the way they did bandaging was a little bit different. They changed you every day. They changed the bandages
Okay.
every day.
Right.
So probably my most embarrassing thing of the entire thing was the nurses said to me, come on, bath, we're having a bath. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. So they put me in the shower, and no word of a lie. These two nurses, one stands there. I'm standing there naked, just with my bandages on. And honest to God, they had no shower. They started throwing buckets of water at me.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, oh my God. Like there was no shower thing that would go around your, like, it was just bizarre. Anyways,
Oh,
then I was all
wow.
cleaned up. They rebandaged me up, put my binders on, put me back in bed. And I walked every day constantly as much as I could. I
Wow.
knew that was the only way I was going to get out of the hospital to get all those body gases moving again and get going, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the doctor was so happy. He's like, everything was great. Like, you're fine. I even loved, we used to laugh because one of the things they did in the hospital was they gave you this very mild broth.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone called it chicken feet soup. Like all the Americans called it chicken feet soup. And I'm like, oh, I got the chicken feet soup coming. I loved it. And they're like, you are crazy, girl. Because I was in contact with all of his patients around the world, right? So
Mhm.
that I knew what was kind of going on. And they're like, that's crazy. I'm like, I love the soup. So I did the soup, did the jello, whatever. And I think about 4 days later, got out of the hospital, went back to the hotel. Now at the time, I was lucky in that there were 7 patients in the hotel at the same time. They put us within 2 floors. So my husband Frank, who most of you know is amazing, He did all of the bandage changes for us, and he did all of the cooking. So we became the Jello Club of 2005. And he would make us Jello all day. Like everybody would come to our room for Jello and food. He fed everybody. I remember us going to the bakery, and I was like, oh my gosh, that quiche looks great. Like we bought
Mhm.
one little quiche about this big and shared it
Mhm.
between 8 of us, and we all had just a little bite, right? And it was just amazing. But the experience was amazing. Now, Brazil is interesting in that there's no fat people in Brazil that are out kind of during the day.
Yeah.
They kind of only come out at night. So,
The night
day,
people.
yeah, day 4, I think we were going shopping. So we all got in this bus. They took us downtown. And of course, everybody stared at us because we're all heavy, right? And we're all whatever. Well, me and this gentleman from we met from Texas, I said to him, I go, look at all these people staring at us. Like, this is worse than at home. And I said to him, I go, okay, we sat on this park bench because we were done. Like he was as large as I was and we were tired. So they continued down the block and people would just stare at us. And I said, okay, let's do this big game. I took my camera. I said, you wave and smile and I'm going to take their picture. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. So we did this for like an hour and people were like, then people would like walk past us, stare at us. We take their picture. They'd walk past, just snotty looks on their faces. It was so funny. And then a lady came up to us, a very thin, beautiful Brazilian woman, and she said, welcome to my country. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then she showed us her tummy and she had had surgery too. So they kind of like, there was never any clothes that I could buy there. There was
Right.
nothing. And they kind of like just all had bariatric surgery there because there's nothing they can do. There's no clothes you can wear.
Mhm.
There's like, it's unbelievable. But so that's the whole stigma of like, here I am running around like all acting like I'm okay. Like I was never embarrassed to be out and about. I'm like, if you don't like me, don't look at me. Like I'm fine with that. But it was just like learning a new culture of that kind of um, treatment. You know,
That social stigma that you weren't
yeah,
self-stigmatizing, it was
right,
others.
right. And I never like the girls in the SBSG used to say to me, you should be the poster child for obesity because you are not afraid to speak up. You're not afraid to talk to us. You're not afraid to voice your opinion. You're not afraid to educate. And I'm like, you can't be. Like, we're human.
Yeah.
Did we get to a good place? No. Are we working towards getting to a good place now? Yes. Are we all in a good place? No. Are we all now? No. Is there issues? Yes. I mean, we had a girl in Brazil that was pretty scary. Like she had gotten addicted to drugs. And I was really I brought her to the doctor. I said, we need to help her. We need to, we need an intervention of some sort. I was very afraid. And to this day
Yeah.
now, she's good. But, it's like they talk about, all these addictions we have, addicted to food. So
That's me right there.
when you can't have that, you transfer those addictions. And we talk about this all the time, to drugs, to medication, to sex, to drinking. There are so many people in the organization and in this world that do this, right? Like they
Mhm.
do. So what do you do when you're upset about something? Open the fridge. Like, it's the first thing I do. And it still is the first thing I do. Only now I try to make a better choice. Maybe instead
Good.
of looking for cookies, which I try not to even have in the house, except for Girl Guide time, but maybe instead of half a pack of cookies, I'm looking for a banana or some grapes. I could never eat half a pack of cookies anymore, but I mean, at one time, obviously. And it's just like about learning and changing your whole lifestyle and everything that you do.
Mhm.
I remember that when I got my first vehicle,
Mhm.
the most exciting thing about me getting a vehicle was that I could go to as many drive-throughs as I wanted that day and nobody would know.
Yeah.
How sad is that?
Yeah.
And now I don't even eat any drive-through food. Like I
Right.
can't, and it just makes the smell of it. For the first 3 years after my surgery, driving past what was it, on the corner of Vic and what is it, Park and Vic, that fast food restaurant. I would get physically ill smelling that. And KFC for years, same thing. Just like I'd want to throw up, and I'm like, this is good. I don't want to go and have those things because I
Yeah,
just that just the smell of them made me sick, and I was like, this is a good deterrent because I won't get those wants and desires.
yeah.
I think probably over the last, oh, what, however many years, I've probably gone to McDonald's once, no, twice, bought a bacon double cheeseburger or whatever, had a bite
Mhm.
and threw it out the window.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it's like I just wanted to satisfy that. I wanted that taste,
That first
yeah,
yeah,
but I don't want it. So
yeah,
that's another problem. We get
yeah.
this food and then we're like, oh, here, honey. And then our spouses eat it.
My
There's,
husband has gained so much weight since I started this bariatric journey because I won't finish whatever it is, and then I'll just naturally not wanna waste it, right? So I'll just
yeah,
hand it to him, and
yeah,
he'll very happily, like, we're not making
yeah,
terrible food choices, just
yeah,
the wrong amount of food choices.
exactly.
Our
Yep.
portions are so out of control in this society.
Yes. And actually, you know what, this is what we started too. It's like, well, if we make enough supper that we have 7 days of lunch, that's too much. So we've started to cut down what we're cooking at home so that there might be one person's lunch the next day,
Yeah,
not 5 days of it, right?
yeah,
That is so huge. And it's hard to get into that because you put a chicken breast in the oven. Well, I never made less than three.
yeah,
Now I need one,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's
And
amazing how 2 people with the size of chicken breasts that we have, 2 people can easily have a full portion of meat on
yeah,
1 breast,
no,
and
that's true.
somebody with bariatric surgery can have 4 meals out of the same breast.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
No, that's true. And I like we just don't change that. We don't change that process, right?
yeah.
So anyways, I was the first Canadian to go to Brazil and 35 because our wait list was problematic at the time.
Mhm.
And then the doctor kind of stopped operating and we didn't really have a program and it was like five years plus wait back then.
Oh, wow.
There 35 people from Canada followed me to Brazil.
Wow.
There was about 20 from Saskatchewan. No, wait a second. There was two from BC, two from Manitoba, and the rest from Saskatchewan. And it was funny because some of them said to me, like, we're just gonna see if you go and die first. I was like,
You're the canary in the coal mine.
right. And so I was like, oh well, whatever, like whatever. And then they started to go. And then it was like, well, now we lost a whole bunch of weight. Now what do we do?
Yeah.
And there's a plastic surgeon on every street corner in Brazil. Like I'm not kidding. In Curitiba, there's so many. And I was like, oh, I think I need to, figure this out, how we can make this happen. So I wanted to be able to complete my journey. And I wasn't happy with, like, I'm sorry, but I wasn't happy with what I was seeing here because I didn't just want to lose the skin. I wanted them to, like, make it look nice too.
Mhm.
And the Berry Plastics surgeons do it a bit different. They want it to look nice. They want you to look nice. They want whatever. And so I went and I had some of my work there. I'm not done. Like now I could go, now I've lost another 75 pounds since I did my plastics and now I'm like hanging again. But, you know, I, I just feel like I'm either going to do more there or not probably do it at all because I just don't feel comfortable. And
Mhm.
it's unfortunate because everybody should have access to that specialty. I mean, yes, people have had plastics here and they're like, I'm okay with it. And
Mhm.
that's good. And I've seen some good work here too. But on the whole, I want a bariatric surgeon to deal with me because they took 25 pounds off my stomach. Like
Wow.
when you have that much, you can't just go to a plastic surgeon. You need a specialist. And I'm sorry, but I just said, you know what? I'm just going to pay for it. I know lots of people that go to Mexico for plastics. Like there's a ton.
Mhm.
And but there's also people here who pay to get it done for them, depending on what they're
Mhm.
looking for, because they don't
Mhm.
cover everything. And it's like, so you go through this whole process, and I think that was for me. You go through this whole process. I was wearing a size 10X at the time.
Wow.
You lose
Yeah.
all this weight, and then you like feel gross.
Yeah.
I wanted, I thought, you know what, I deserve to feel better.
You've gone through
So,
all of that work. I mean,
yeah,
like we said earlier, people will think that surgery is the fast or the easy or
right.
the whatever.
Yep.
The first doctor I talked to about it, my old doctor way back in the day, he's like, "Oh, so you want the easy way out, do you?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." So I just
Yeah.
kind of put it out of my mind. It's like, "All right, I'm stronger than that. I can do this."
Right. Right.
And I had no idea the work that it took in order to
Yeah.
get the results that are
Yeah.
necessities. Like
Yeah.
there's no question that there is so much work that has to be done.
Yeah.
And not the least of it is the mental work,
Right.
right?
No, I mean, it's true. And you know what? So, like, so as long as I looked in the mirror and see 500 pounds, like
Mhm.
I knew I could never do anything different. And I had to
Right.
do something. I'm not happy with my body now yet, but I
Okay.
also know that I'm getting there, and I'm at the point where if I want to make a decision, I can. So,
Mhm.
so a plastic surgeon in Brazil approached me and said, "I'm a bariatric surgeon. You know, he's dealt with most of this doctor's patients, and he actually asked me to become a international representative for him." And I did that for about maybe 10 years, I guess. And so I
That's a
still
good
can help
stint.
people because I can still help people kind of decide about what they want to do or how they want to do it. And I still do referrals to him if they want. We go through the process, when I help people get ready for that and whatever. And actually, you know what? Frank and I went with a lot of patients and we cared for them. And we were
Mhm.
caregivers in Brazil, but we also brought people there for the weight loss surgery that didn't have anybody. And
Right.
if I was going anyways, it was like, who wants to go? Like, let's go, right? There are
Yeah.
a few girls in Saskatchewan that want to go to Brazil for plastics. And I'm in the iffy part yet. I might be another year, but I've sent my pictures to him. I want some other things done. I want to probably my most traumatic experience was when I went to the pool one day at a regional park and this kid said called me like Frankenstein because I was so covered in scars and stuff. It was terrible. And
Oh,
I was probably
wow.
like 40 at the time and I was devastated. And
And kids can be cruel. I mean,
and,
they
you
can be
know though that
intentionally
they just
cruel,
didn't get it. Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was probably the worst. And so, I mean, it's such a process, right? And like, to be honest with you, like, this is how, again, all the SBSG started. There was no support. And
Mhm.
we started doing coffee like in my basement.
Yeah.
And then we grew. And then we started doing coffee at the hotel I worked at. And then we grew. And then a bunch of the group got together and said, we need to do something more. We need to form a group of some sort. And then it went from there. And look, 20 some years later, nonprofit organization. And
Mhm.
I mean, I admit that I'm ready to kind of move on and kind of just be a consultant, but we need people in the province that are having this
Yeah.
surgery have a place to go to, but get involved. We need people to be involved. And that's the
Yeah.
problem with bariatric people. They don't want to be in the forefront.
We're so used to putting ourselves in the back.
Yes. And so if
Just back
more
of
people would,
photographs, back of people's interest, back of people's
yeah,
whatever. That's where we're used to being.
yeah. And if more people would stand up and say, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm going to be a speaker, I'm going to talk, I'm not scared, then some of us old timers could probably step in the back, right? And kind of move
Yeah.
things along. But it's like, it's just been such a part, like it's still a part of my life so deeply, right? And
Mhm.
and there are so many things that a person really needs to know and learn. And I mean, I get private messages from people and patients still from years ago. This is going on. What do I do? Like
Mhm.
some of the members are getting C. diff. Have you like C. difficile is the worst thing
Yeah.
ever. Um, and oh my
Wow.
God, like to even think now that what I went through, sitting in, I don't know if you know what C. difficile is, but it's a bacterial infection in your intestines. And like you seriously, I think I went to the washroom like 56 times was the most in one day. It was the
One
worst,
day.
worst,
Wow.
worst infection, worst anything I ever had. And I tell you, like I was suffering bad and it's the worst thing for anybody to get. And yet this is what happens to our guts sometimes when things are not working right. And I went to the boards and I tried to research. And I'm like, how can I get rid of this? And it was funny because the patients that I'd met all over the world had said, do this and this together. And I'm like, I've never heard of that. Went to my doctor and I said, they said to do this and this. And she said, I've never heard of that either, but let's try it. I was so lucky that she, like worked with me. And so interestingly enough, she never had a bariatric patient until me. I sent everybody to
Oh,
her.
oh,
I sent
wow.
all of us there because I wanted her to see a group of people and, have her see the similarities in our issues. So she was very good with me and would say, yeah, let's give it a try.
This is your
And
GP in Regina, is that right?
yeah, she's retired now though. But I mean, it
Okay.
was great to have somebody like that who is so open to learning and accepting all the patients
Yeah.
we all went to her. It was great. I mean,
Yeah.
there were others too, but there was quite a few of us that went to her.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the first questions people ask is how do I find a doctor who's willing to work with bariatric patients?
Right.
And I'm thinking, with the shortage we have of doctors everywhere in Canada, really in Saskatchewan, but I will never complain about Saskatchewan medical care since I lived in New Brunswick. I mean, wow. Yeah, at least
Okay.
here you can get a doctor to see you in the ER.
Right.
You're not waiting 3 days in the lobby of the ER. It just
Oh,
was
okay.
awful there. So yeah, no, it's bad here, but I
I
have
think
seen worse.
I think that
So,
all of these types of things is why I have spent so much time learning about how my body functions, how it works,
mhm,
and doing so much holistic work.
yeah.
Like, I am a natural healer. I prefer to not take drugs or over the counter medication. As you know, I use a lot of essential oils.
Mhm.
I have a healing wand. I do Reiki. I do reflexology. I have a gut guy that works on my stuff. Like, I do all these things first, and I just, it's just better for me. That's my choice.
Tell the people about your gut guy. Like, that sounds really weird, but oh my word, you were explaining this to me a
I
few months
know.
ago.
Like,
Amazing.
I'm sort of afraid of that because I don't want him to get so busy that I can't get
Don't
appointments.
name him. Don't name him.
As
Just
it
tell
is,
just what he does.
I've booked all my appointments for 6 months already because I can't not get them.
Yeah.
So one of the problems that I've been having is that I've been having lately intestinal blockages, bowel blockages, and most people in the States that I know have said, "You're crazy. You don't go to the hospital. Like, you are crazy." And I'm like, I do not want morphine. I don't want that stuff in my system.
Yeah.
So I stay home and I work through it and I use the oils and I massage and all these things. And people are like, "You're a crazy lady." Is it painful? Oh, yes. But it's waves of pain. So you know what? Every woman, well, not every woman, but most women have had a baby. So you know what that feels like. It's waves of pain, contractions, whatever. So,
Mhm.
anyways, I met this girl who told me that this guy was amazing, and I'm like, whatever. People say that all the time, and I went to him, and I had a blockage, and he said, "Yep, I can fix this." So we started working things, and I'm like, "Okay, what are you doing?" He's like moving my body parts around. So now when I have a blockage, he just clears it. He's like, "Yep, right here, right here, right here," and then I have to run to the
Is it like
bathroom.
a massage of some sort, or
It
how
sort
does
of is. It sort of
okay,
is.
okay.
The one thing I will tell people that everybody makes a mistake about is that
Mhm.
when you have anything in your intestines that's going on, we always go to the heating pad.
Mm,
Wrong.
okay.
Heat slows your guts down.
Wow,
Cold,
okay.
cold speeds them up and get things moving. So what he said to me is put a cold compress on. So what I do is I have those beanbag things that you can put in the
Yep,
microwave. I
yep.
leave them, the ones with the little crystal plastic balls, they go in my freezer. And I leave them there
Mm.
until I need them. And
Mhm.
then they go on my tummy. And
Hmm.
it is unbelievable, like the difference that it makes and the pain. And so I've just
Hmm.
learned how to do all of these things. So I go to see this man, and the first thing he says to me is, "Yeah, your stomach's not in the right place." And I'm
Well, of
like,
course it's not. I had surgery on it. It's also
"Yeah."
only this big.
And so I was like, "What do you mean by that?" And he said to me after we finished everything and all these things he did, he said, "When you have surgery," he said, "imagine this. Your doctor opens you up, takes all the parts out, fixes them, plays around with them, whatever, puts them back in." He said, "Do you think that they all put them back in the exact place they're supposed to be, the exact location, the exact tilting, the exact everything?" And I said, "I never really thought about it." He said,
I
"Well, they
hadn't
don't."
either. Yeah.
So he said they don't, and so I need to do that. So he did all these things for me, and then he said to me, and this was my my get go for him. He said to me, "Your bladder's not in the right." He said, "You urinate a lot." I go, "Like an old lady every half an hour."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Your bladder's not in the right spot." And I'm like, "Okay, weirdo." So he does a bunch of stuff, moves my bladder, and I'm like, "Okay." So it was funny because right after we had that appointment, we had to go to Melfort. Well, Regina to
Mm.
Melfort, what, 4 hours? And normally I'd
Mhm.
stop about 4 times.
Mhm.
I get to Melfort, my husband looks at me and goes, you never had me stop for the washroom. I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Oh
Huh.
my God, this guy is true. Like, he's a real
It's
deal."
a miracle.
And I've been seeing him monthly since then. And
Wow.
he just like makes sure everything's good. And when I do have a bit of a blockage, I'm like, I was in the I did go to the hospital once because they said you never do a CT and we can't see what's going on. So I went. They drugged me up. I said, "Take it out." And then I had my CT and everything, and I still went to see him. And the doctor comes to me in emergency and he says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want you to let me go home and I'll go make an appointment with my gut guy." And he goes, "Okay." And they let me go. And he fixed me up. So I just, like when you find people like that do these different therapies and different things, I mean, you just have to go.
Yeah.
But you have to give that type of understanding and learning a chance
Mhm.
because they also in the hospital gave me what the heck was it? Not Ativan. What the heck was that drug? I don't remember, but it was Dilaudid.
Oh,
Terrible.
yeah.
So I'm laying
Yeah.
in the hospital bed and they give me this Dilaudid for the pain. And I looked up and all of the on the ceiling, all of the screws in the ceiling and the walls and stuff were all popping out. And I was like, "Whoa." And I said, "This is not for me." I called the nurse and I said, "You need to take this off, this drip off me or whatever you did." And she said,
Mm.
"Well, then your pain's going to come back." And I said, "I'd rather have pain than be out to lunch." So then I had to use the washroom. I got up. I could barely walk. I could barely make it there. And I
Yeah.
just was like, see, I know this is for me. This is the right decision.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah.
See, for
So,
me, Dilaudid did absolutely nothing. It's supposed to be 5 times stronger than morphine, and I felt 0 difference. I felt more difference with 2 extra strength Tylenol,
yeah,
and that just is the way my system decided it was gonna work.
right.
So, yeah.
And I mean, part of it could be too is like, I don't take stuff. I don't take
Yeah.
aspirin. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
so maybe that was worse for me.
Mhm.
But even with my kidney stones, I use oils. Like, I don't take medication. So if you believe in it, learn about what you need to use or what you should use or whatever. It's different for everyone. And I'm not saying some people don't have major pain and they want
Mhm.
to use those things, but
Mhm.
when I first started getting kidney stones, and of course this is a side effect, make sure you drink your water. I
Yep.
was always dehydrated and I ended up getting kidney stones. And I've had
Mhm.
them removed every 2 years since about 2015, I think.
Oh, wow.
And I'm part of the kidney stone prevention clinic program here in Regina, and
I
it's
didn't know
still
there
not
was such a
helping.
thing.
Yes. I
Oh,
Yeah, so they see me every 6 months. I do the 24-hour urine test.
yeah.
They run like 100 tests on your urine. It's crazy. But
Wow.
they tell you like your salt is a little bit up, your this is that, or they'll say, "Oh, this is really good." And these numbers are really great. Well, when I do the master cleanse, of course the numbers are great. But it's like I don't even use real salt. I use Celtic salt and I use sea salt and whatever. And it's, there's other options to use. And they're like, "This is good, this is bad, and this is what, changes things, and this is what creates things." Why my body wants all these stones, I don't know. But this is what
Hmm.
happens to me. So
Hmm.
it is a huge thing. And, it is something to think about for people. Like, drink your water, take your vitamins.
Yep.
I was not very compliant with those things that I knew I needed to be.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. See, for my journey, like I said, I started out quite a few years ago, and my doctor's like, "Okay, easy way out?" I don't think so. So I just dropped it from then for
Right.
many, many years. And I got up to in the 300-pound range. And I was like just over 300 pounds at my highest. And I have body dysmorphia, which means I don't see myself the same way other people see myself. When I was really super, super big, I didn't see myself as being that big. I didn't see in my brain
Yeah.
the person that was the size that couldn't fit between those 2 cars,
Right.
right? But when I was very slim, which I was for a number of years, I didn't see myself as very slim either, so I just my brain and my perception of myself don't always go in alignment.
But
So when I did find go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I think that's all of us though. Like, I don't think it's just
That
you.
No, you're right, it's not just me, and that is a lot of people. So when I finally did go onto the list, and we talk about the list, it's like this huge, massive,
Yeah.
overwhelming thing, right? But when I finally did get my doctor to refer me, um, it was such a relief that she trusted that, yeah, this isn't just an easy out. So I went on the list and I decided, okay, yeah, we're going to do it here in Saskatchewan. And what I really appreciated about Saskatchewan is that they force you to do all the learning that you chose to do on your own.
Right.
And so in Saskatchewan, you have to go to classes, you have to see a dietitian, a physiotherapist, all of these things. And if they don't think that you're ready for it, they won't do your surgery.
But
Whereas somebody
I
could
can
go
I can
to,
comment on that though as well.
yep, yep,
When the surgeon in Saskatoon stopped operating and there was no program here at all,
yep,
Dr. Caban is like the one that brought a program to Saskatchewan again. And there are people that, and I didn't speak to him about these things myself, but I heard that he said, I'm not doing this unless you are able to provide this and this and this and this and this. And that's huge because he knew that you can't just operate on people and they go away and they're fine. He knew
yep,
that you had to work on their mind and their eating habits and their nutrition and all those things. And that's all of the parts that everybody has to go through now. And
yep,
I know some people say, oh, it's tough, it's this, it's that. But in the long
yeah,
run, like we didn't have that. I went to Brazil, had my surgery, came home, and I was like, here I am. So I had to do that on my own. But going through those classes that the folks were talking about today, and is overwhelming. Yes, sometimes people get turned away for whatever reason, or they get moved back for a few months. But in the long run, it's beneficial for them, right?
yeah,
To be successful. Because if you're going to go through this and change your body like that, you want to be successful, right? You don't want to be ever doing it again or being in a position where you feel you need to, whatever. But everybody has a little bit of regain. But I have to say, kudos completely to Gordy Caban because he knew what the program needed in this province and he knew what he needed to do to make it happen. And
yeah,
now look, we have 3 surgeons.
yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
couldn't have asked for anything better. Yes, in the beginning it was slower to get in. One, they didn't give them a whole lot of OR time. The wait list was still as long. There was a lot of things. But that's a new program developing.
hmm
That made sense to those of us that have been around for a while. New patients were like, now, and they didn't understand, right? But we knew. We knew that
yeah,
he was taking all the right steps and doing all the right things. And that
yeah,
is huge in itself, right?
yeah. So some people might be like myself who they'll look at somebody like me. I had bariatric surgery in January of 2020. I think I might have been the last week or the last second last week of people in 2020 who got surgery because of
Okay.
COVID.
Oh, right. Yes.
Um, and I lost quite a bit of weight, but then I gained most of it back because a lot of people can no longer have sugar or they get dumping syndrome. They can't have um, certain amount or a certain type of food, or they get very sick. Like yourself, you would smell processed foods or something like that and just feel sick. I had none of that. My body doesn't limit me at all. The only limit that is in my body is the physical size of my stomach. So my food addiction still does um it what's the word I'm looking for? It stops me from being what I was hoping that I could be because of the tool of weight loss surgery. I was hoping a lot of those automatic, or I guess automatic types of stops would be in there, because I
Right.
was hoping that I couldn't eat sugar. I was hoping that I couldn't,
Right.
stomach or smell or whatever, because I
Right.
would personally need that physical deterrent, because my
Right.
mental deterrent just doesn't exist.
Right.
So I'm
But
on my way back down.
yeah.
But, yeah, I'm what some people might say, "Oh, bariatric surgery didn't work for her." Well, no, it's not the surgery that works or what doesn't. They take a piece of your body, they make it small, that's the surgery, and it worked.
Right.
It's my mental state that didn't
Yeah.
change the way that a lot of people can make their mental state change.
Right.
What would you say for somebody like that?
Well, I think number one, like kudos to you for recognizing your limitations and realizing that, you know what, don't go buy Halloween candy
Mhm,
because you know you're going to eat it, right? So
mhm,
it's like making that decision not to have that in your house, not to be near it, not to be whatever. Are
mhm.
we all emotional eaters? Yes. Like, how did we get to be this way? Is there different traumas and stuff associated with it? Yes. Can you get some counseling maybe and have them kind of discuss with you, like maybe like what is the reason, right? I still to this day now I do trauma release exercises, and I
Mm,
and I I have a woman that does that with me because why? Well, I have some trauma. And why did you start eating like this in the beginning? And you know
mhm,
what, to be honest, like why is that? Well,
mhm.
do I want to sit here and blame my mother? No, but she part of it? Yes. I was also adopted. Then there was the, feeling of abandonment. There's so many things. But here's the thing, we're all human. We all have issues. Do you see a girl who's a 10 who has no issues? No, you just can't see them.
Yeah,
And so, like here's the thing is like it's important that you recognize, first of all, that there are issues, that you can talk about it. I mean, you're live. Somebody's
yeah,
hearing us right now, right?
yeah,
Are you perfect? No. Are you the perfect size you want to be? No. Am I?
no,
No. And it's like, but do we ever look at ourselves and go, wow, that's pretty good?
yeah,
No. Someone said to me at work yesterday, you need to stop losing weight because you're getting too skinny. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? But that's the thing. It's like but some of them have seen me at my start weight and now at this weight, and they're like, yeah, that's enough. And I'm like, I'm
yeah,
not even at goal yet. But to be honest with you, like the doctor said, I would end up around 267. And I was
mhm,
like, no, that is not good enough for me. I am not happy with that. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Like I think I said to you, I think I was 188 this morning.
mhm.
175 is my goal. I would
Wow.
be there if I didn't have my skin. So maybe I'll get a little bit
Yes.
lower. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. I'm not going to be like, I I still think, you know what? I've worked really hard. I'm a fabulous person. I help people. I do charity stuff. I do whatever. But do I have learning and growing to do and changing to do? Yeah, I do. Because why? Because when I'm upset, I go to the store and buy a chocolate bar. I
Mhm.
know that.
Yeah.
And you know what? Right now, the learning part of it for me is if you have to go to the store and buy a chocolate bar, just stop buying two.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, well,
Harm reduction.
they were on sale today, three for $5. So I had to buy three. And I bring three home. And what do? Put them in the freezer.
Yeah.
I did stop myself from buying them, but maybe I can stop myself from eating them right now,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I think our freezer is full of Christmas baking. As long as I leave it, like when people give us stuff, right?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff I give away, but as long as I leave it in the freezer, I'm pretty good.
Or you can just have this one butter tart, you'll be fine. They don't realize, like with any drug, you can control that you don't have the first.
Yeah.
I can't control not having the second, third, fourth, fifth,
Yeah, well, me
because
neither.
that's just every time I want to have, or every time I have that flavor in my mouth, I just want it more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I think that's most of us on
Yeah.
this particular journey, isn't it?
Well, I mean, like that's the thing is like, people are very hard on themselves. And you know what? Like somebody will say, oh my gosh, I gained 5 pounds. And you're like, I gained 5 pounds overnight. Like,
That's
so
right.
we don't understand. Like my friend used
Yeah.
to say about the people in the surgery group, well, he was just over 500 pounds. And he used to say, well, if I was only 300 pounds, I wouldn't need surgery. And look how many people are in the group that are 300 pounds. So they're at the start of their journey. That doesn't help me when I look at myself and go, you're at the start of your journey, I'm at the end. That makes me
Mhm.
feel like crap. But it's like, you have a different journey.
And you're
You
not at
know?
the end of your journey. Yours is going to be a continuing journey because it's all
Right.
mindset,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. There's still learning to do. And that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I stick around the group too. Maybe I can
Mm,
share some of the information to some new people.
yeah.
And, like maybe I can talk to people and do other things. Do you remember? I don't know if you recognize, but we went to Prince Albert recently to have a meeting of the SBSG board.
Yes.
And there was a
And the girl
patient
who
there who said to me, I had made a comment to somebody and they said, you can't say that. That's a trigger for someone. And I was like, oh
And
my
what was
God.
that phrase that you used?
I said, love yourself. Like you need, yeah,
You
right.
need to love yourself.
Right. And she said, no, you
Yeah.
don't. And I was like, wait a second. And I just never in my life thought, why wouldn't you love you? Because I've always loved me.
Yeah.
There's obviously people that don't, right? So it's like, and
Absolutely.
she said, and I had to thank her because I was like, I never even thought of it. I never thought that someone would have such a negative feeling of themselves that I would
Mhm.
trigger that feeling. And I was like, wow, I felt terrible. But you know what? All these years, and look, I'm still learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
that's what's
shame on
important
us
too.
if we quit.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much, right? And when you stop and listen to people and they talk about things and you think, wow, like I didn't realize. And
Mhm.
I've been doing this for over 20 years and, been involved with the bariatric community, been a spokesperson, been political, been bossy. And I just still to this day, like you can learn always, right? And do any of us make the right choices all the time? No. I eat pizza sometimes, but the thing is that will change is that I can have one piece of pizza now. I don't have five,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
that's changed too. I could probably eat more, but I don't.
Yeah.
I know that it won't make me feel good. There's certain things I can't eat at all anymore, but so what? Go get something else. I've sort of stopped feeling sorry for myself that I can't have a lot of things, and it's okay, right? You get over it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yeah, that's the worst illness of all is poor me-itis.
right,
It's like it's
yeah,
just we all feel like
yeah,
I'm missing out, and I think that's part of also with our weight gain, with our food addictions, it's like, what am I missing out on? I'm
yeah,
missing out on that flavor, that texture,
yes,
that crunch, or that
yeah,
whatever that is, we're wanting to fill this void of
yeah,
something's missing,
yeah.
and, we need to
You know
find
what
something
though? Like,
healthier.
here's something interesting that I've started to do a little bit. If
Mhm.
my husband is eating something that I really want, but I know I will make me sick, I've actually had a bite, chewed it up for a bit, and spit it out
There you go.
because that taste is there, that feeling is there. I've satiated that. I'm good.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I don't know why it works for me, but it does. So I do it.
it's
I
a good
mean,
idea.
I wouldn't use it with like a pop or something like that, but I definitely there is some food that I'm like I just want to taste it. Or
Mhm.
somebody has birthday cake at work, I'm like sticking my finger in the icing. I'm like, I just want to taste it. I don't need to eat the cake because it's going to make me sick, and I know that.
Yeah.
But that little taste, and it's like you have to, re- like I won't say reward yourself because that's wrong too. You don't want to reward yourself with food, but
Yes.
but you have to be able to feel like you're part
Yeah.
and that it's okay to do that. And like I
Yeah.
said, that little taste of icing is all I need to make me feel that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, something that we talk about quite a bit, we have a Facebook group called Saskatchewan Bariatric Support Group. And if you're anywhere on the spectrum of I'm wanting to think about bariatric surgery, I'm having bariatric surgery, I'm on the wait list, I'm not yet on the wait list, I've
yeah,
had it, anywhere in that spectrum, please come as a board. I'm also on the board with Tess. As a board, we would be more than happy to support you anywhere in your journey and have you support other people. But something that we do talk a lot about on that Facebook page is non-scale victories. And
Yeah.
yeah, we don't want to celebrate with food, but we also really want to recognize the victories that we have that have nothing to do with the number that's on the scale, because that
Right.
number lies. Like you said, you would probably weigh 25 pounds less without a certain amount of skin,
Yeah.
right? And so that number's
Yeah.
lying about your real size.
Yeah. I love hearing about the little things. Like, think about things like the girl that posted about she was at a hotel and the towel
Mhm.
fit around her. That was huge for me when that happened. I remember sitting
Yes.
at home one day and I was like, "Oh, what is this? What's going on? Oh, I have bones." And my husband was laughing. He's like, "Those are your bones." I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen those before." Like, I grew collarbones, like, and it's like there's
Yeah.
so many things, but so important to take every success is a success.
Yeah. One of my favorite successes, and this is one way that I can semi-regularly um, picture, rather than, like I said earlier, I can't always picture what I really look like. So measurements. I have a belt that used to fit, and this much at the end, like about 2.5 inches, is what was left on the belt before it would get like right to the tip.
Yeah.
At my lowest, there was a good 1.5 foot difference.
Oh, wow.
I know, it was amazing, and now it's somewhere in between there. But most recently, I went and got my blood work done, and the arm that they put down in front of you went down. It didn't hit my belly, and it was wonderful. Again,
Yeah.
that's one of those non-scale victories that
Yeah.
you don't always realize that you
Yeah.
have that victory, you
Yeah.
know? And those
I
victories
sure,
really
I
push you
sure love
forward.
hearing about it though. I love hearing
Yeah.
about it when somebody is like so excited that something happened that other people take for granted,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Whereas a bariatric patient won't. One of the things that we talk about is whoever went to a restaurant with a booth, oh my gosh, like those were the most traumatic times ever, right?
Mhm.
My husband and myself and his parents went out for dinner, and we went
Mhm.
to a restaurant that had a buffet, and there was a booth, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to fit in there. I can't go. I can't go. I can't. And like I was losing my mind. I was so scared. And he
Yep.
goes, "You're going to be fine. Just go in and sit down." Well, I sat down. There was like about a foot in front of the table, and I was like, "Oh, I fit." Like, but in my head, I wouldn't fit there. Like I was
Exactly.
so scared, I would not fit there.
For so many
Right?
years, you couldn't, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
have, there's a young lady that I know who went to a restaurant, and of course, she knew she wouldn't fit in a booth. So she sat on the chair on the outside, how
Yeah.
they'll have like a bench and then the
Yeah.
table and then a chair. She sat on the chair and the chair broke. Now, it was a faulty chair, but in her brain, that's not what happened,
Right.
right? In her brain, it just broke her.
Yeah.
And I don't I'm not surprised. So we have to be super careful when we
Yeah.
judge people who can't fit in a booth, judge people who break a chair, judge
Mhm.
people for whatever per perceived imperfection that they have.
Yeah.
Weight is one of the few things that is still okay to laugh at
It
by
is
comedians.
the last acceptable prejudice.
Short's another really, strong prejudice as well, but you're right, weight is the last.
Yeah.
Everybody, every culture, everywhere has overweight people, and
Yeah.
they get laughed at all
But
the time.
but you know what? I never can understand that. When you think about it, it's like everybody has a grandma, an aunt, a sister, a somebody that's overweight. You
Yep.
know, I there's somebody at work that I've had a bad experience with, and then I saw them somewhere with their like mother, and
Mhm.
she was very heavy, and I'm like,
Mm.
wait a second, treating me like crap, and you got her right there. Like, you got to think about that. And it's like, think about these things. Like, I mean, you're really hurting someone when you're treating them poorly because of this.
Yep.
And you don't think, like, for me when I was growing up, you don't think I know I'm fat. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to tell me what I know already. But
Mhm.
the more make it a big deal, it's just worse. And yeah. And
Yeah,
no
I
wonder
had a
we have
person.
trauma.
Yeah, exactly. I had a person in my life who, was a yo-yo dieter, and they went up and down and up and down, and they lost more weight over the years than they've gained, and I know that because they're now smaller than they used to be, but they used to say to me, "Don't worry, when you feel better about yourself, you will start to lose weight. or when you feel better about yourself, you'll be ready to start to lose weight. It's like,
Right.
hold it, I don't feel bad about me.
Right.
When I got my surgery and I was losing a lot of weight, people would say, "Oh, how do you feel about yourself now?" And I'm like, I feel the same way as I did before because I didn't dislike me,
Right. Right.
you know?
And that's exactly it. Like not everybody does.
Right.
Everybody has different things, right? But I mean, growing up and dating and whatever, I was shallow held by somebody,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, like I was fearful, and we have to remember have meetings in places that have the proper chairs. Like, when I first had my
Mhm.
surgery, when I went to doctors' offices and there weren't any chairs available, I
Yeah.
would go to the receptionist and say, your doctor's office needs to get some chairs that don't have arms. And we
That's
told
right.
them all over the place. And I didn't care if they didn't like it, but as I started to fit into them, it didn't matter. But I was like, no, it matters for other people.
Yeah.
Right. So
Absolutely.
then we still said things. So yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes those of us who aren't scared might hear of somebody who is scared of something who would never speak up.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I will be the advocate for that person because
Yep.
they aren't able to do that for themselves. Sometimes it's their personality. Sometimes it's just the trauma that they've had over the years.
Yep.
Sometimes it's whatever reason.
Yep.
And for those of us who aren't scared of it, like I have a YouTube channel and I'm talking about this kind of stuff. You talk about this kind of stuff on the news and in board meetings, and you're an advocate for so many people. Please don't ever leave the board. And I'm not saying you have to be leader, but your wisdom and your experience is invaluable. I've been in this particular program for about the last 4, 5 years. I had my surgery 4 years ago, almost exactly 4 years ago. And I was on the wait list for probably 2.5 years before that. So I've been in the program for a lot of years,
Uh-huh.
and I still don't feel like I have that much experience, right? Because there's so much more to learn. Always, always more to learn.
Yeah. I mean, there really is. And you know what? Like I said, in the beginning, I was kind of on my own. So I had no
Mhm,
choice but to learn about all the different kinds of surgeries and all the different kinds of places you could go.
mhm.
But really, knowledge is power.
It is.
The people, you can see the people on the group that are like, hey, asking a million questions. Maybe some of them go on anonymously and they ask a million more questions and I just love that people are like, well, with me, in my opinion or whatever, it happened to me this way. We
Yeah,
don't all have the same experience. And
yeah.
so that's great to have different ones. It's good to have different viewpoints. So a person
Mhm,
can say, I learned 5 things about this surgery today. This is my choice. Like I'm going to pick this one or whatever.
mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
Or why do you want that surgery over this one? Why do you want,
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, it's important to have that support and know that I also know there's people on the group that are friends of mine that don't ever go on as anything but anonymous. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's what they're comfortable with. But they come privately too and ask questions and they say things and they're like, I'm having some issues with this. So then they come on
Mhm,
and make those questions. It's funny. So even in our community of people,
mhm.
there's still some that come on as anonymous, right? Because they're not even
Mhm.
comfortable when with us there and dealing with the same things we're dealing with, right?
Right.
So it's interesting because
Yeah.
there's just a plethora of information and a lot of different feelings. And I mean, you know what? In the end of it, in deep down the gut of us, we're the same in so many ways, and we
Mhm.
just have to be here to support
Absolutely.
each other because where are you going to find that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you do want to reach out, first of all, like, share, and subscribe this video. Hit the bell for all alerts, and a lot more of this type of talk for all sorts of different topics. If you've got a lot more weight loss or bariatric topics, I can have Tess on again. Basically, she's at my beck and call, honey. I mean, I'm kidding.
Wow.
No, but I do have a wide variety of people. So perhaps not Tess, perhaps another woman that I'm thinking of who is a no surgery member of our group. And she is amazing. She's another person who has been on the board. And frankly, I was very sad when she chose to leave the board because The woman's got inspiration out the wazoo. She's got skills. She has lost hundreds upon hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
And frankly, she amazes me. So maybe I'll talk to her about whether or not she'd like to do it sometime.
Yeah, that'd
But
be great.
at the bottom of the screen right now, you can see my email address. My others keeper is at gmail.com. So if you have any questions, please email them. Come onto the Facebook SBSG, so Saskatchewan Bariatric Support Group, and find perhaps like one of the, just type a question, and we're more than happy to answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like these things are all so important.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it, if it's something that even, for example, if you have a loved one who maybe needs to think about bariatric surgery and you're afraid to ask them, how do I approach them? That kind of thing. Maybe talk to one of
Yeah.
us and see, okay, this is how lovingly you can approach somebody rather than just
Right.
saying you're fat. Because they, like Tess said, we have eyes. We know. It's
Yeah.
not a question.
Yeah. Don't need to be
We know
told.
we don't fit in that seatbelt,
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was
There,
one of my favorite. Mhm.
go ahead.
That was one of my favorite non-scale victories, is when I could be on an airplane without a seatbelt extender. The last time I was on an airplane, my seatbelt was short by 1 inch.
Oh, really?
1 inch.
I
But I mean,
remember,
yeah.
the way the stewardess at the front holding out the seatbelt extender. Who is that person that needed this? Everybody looks around. Like, really? Like, who do you think
Yeah.
needs it? And
Yeah.
actually, I have to say that the first thing about going to Brazil, the worst
Mhm.
thing about going to Brazil was getting there.
Yeah.
Having to buy two seats. I had a guy, and actually in front of us, there was a man and a woman and a child. And
Mhm.
the man was in front of me, and of course he had to sleep all the way back, which was right on my body. I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. I had to wake him to let him get me up. And I said to the stewardess, I buzzed her and I said, "Can you help me? Like, I can't get out." So she woke him up and made him move so I could go to the bathroom. And then in the morning, when they woke us up, we were in the bathroom lineup again, and he was behind me. And I said, "I'm so sorry I inconvenienced you so much," because he was being really rude, constantly pushing his seat back on me. And I'm like, "Do you not see that you're on top of me?" Right.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Oh, no, that's okay. But you had a child beside you could have put in front of me." Right. But no.
Or you have a child beside you that you're teaching these
Right.
behaviors to,
Right. Yeah. Good
you
point,
know?
too. Yeah.
That's something that, yeah. My children, there was a woman who was very large at a doctor's office I was at. My girls were only like 2 and 3 years old, so they were very, very little, and they were fascinated by her, and I had no idea what to do. None.
Really?
And when we finally left, I'm like, "Ma'am, I am so sorry." She's like, "Teach your kids better." I'm like, "Okay,
Wow.
thank you." And I admit I handled it 100% wrong.
Right.
But, just that reminder, we have kids that we are teaching these behaviors to.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot. And you know what?
there
I
is.
think it's important, like, that people, you have to feel comfortable in your own skin.
Mhm,
And that's what I love about this group, this support group, is that
mhm.
you can be,
Yeah,
and people aren't going to judge you, and the board members aren't going to let you not be proper. And that's
yeah,
good too, because sometimes, you know what, like, if you're having a bad day, maybe you'll be a little snippy, but it's
yeah,
like we are all in the same boat. We're not rowing the same direction, but we're definitely drowning together if something goes on. Right? So it's like, we have that learning. We're
yeah.
so blessed to have people that are nurses
Oh,
in our
yeah.
group, that are part of the program, that are like, have been to other places, that can advise, give really good advice to people. Like, just
Mhm,
be supportive on a bad day is nice, or
mhm.
if something happens. I mean, it's just so beneficial. So it's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, with whatever is going on in your life, having people around you who know what you're going through,
Yeah.
is huge, huge. It's something that cannot be replaced, you
No.
know? So that's just one of those things where you just go, "Okay, how do I find people who have maybe not the same problem, but similar problems, who are a
Right.
little further perhaps on their road than what I am? And
Yeah.
how can I be that person further on the road than what somebody new is?
Right.
I have a young friend who has been asked to leave the program because
Oh.
she has a lot of emotional problems going on. And they're like, you know what? You've been through a lot. You've got a lot of trauma going on. And right now, this program is not where you need to be. And
Oh.
she was instantly totally disheartened.
And
And I
devastated
said to
mentally.
her, yeah. And I said to her, you know what? You were not kicked out of this program for good. They want you back after you've
Totally
had some
different.
treatment,
Yeah.
after you've been able to work on yourself a little bit more, because you will not succeed in this program
Yeah.
unless you have done that. And they want you to succeed.
Right.
So I mean, like it seems harsh, but in some ways it was probably the best thing that could happen. The next step though is to make sure that I stay connected with her so that she doesn't become this person who feels completely outed or ousted, I guess, from the program. Feel that like they're still beneficial and
Right.
hardworking and all of these things because
Right.
she is. She just has other work to do
Other things going on.
before she can look at this and say, this is what I need to do.
Right. Well,
So
maybe
I
that
yeah.
person, whoever she is, could kind of stay in our group if she's in
Yeah.
our group now, and learn and
Yeah.
prepare and work through some of those things with support. She
Yeah.
doesn't have to tell anybody that she's been deferred, just
Yeah.
that, I'm in the program and whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, because we don't need to know everybody's details.
No.
And some people share more
Exactly.
than others, and that's fine. But sometimes it's good
Mhm.
to know who to go to too,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that girl went to Brazil, or that girl went to Mexico, or that girl went to wherever. And, or that person had this surgery first. Now they've done this one. And I mean, revisions happen, right? And
Yeah.
weight gain happens and regain and all sorts of things. And it's like, it's all part of the process, but not everybody regains. Not
Nope.
everybody, not everybody doesn't. Like, it's just, everybody is different. And,
Yeah.
you want your body to agree and do what you need it to do. And then you're like, and then it doesn't. So,
Yeah.
there's work that needs to be done, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. I'm so grateful for the support of the people in this group. We're probably 95% women, but we do have some men.
great
So if there's
men.
any guys, pardon?
We have great men in our group.
Yes, yes, we have wonderful men in our group
Yeah.
who've done a lot of work in a very difficult position because
Yeah.
as a man, you're not looked at nearly as badly, I think, if you're overweight
Right.
as a woman at the same size.
Yeah.
So for them to say, for my health, I have to do this. I
Yeah.
can't just rely on my good looks.
Yeah.
I have to rely on my heart working, my
Right.
lungs, my
Yeah.
liver, my kidneys, all of that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in as much as I may have extra, you can't see what I'm grabbing my belly, tissue on the outside, my viscera, so my liver, my heart, my kidneys, everything like that has almost no fat. Most of my fat is on the outside. Um, I was recently at a cancer research clinic, and they're like, we just tested, your internal versus external fat, and you've actually not got a lot of internal fat. And I'm like, yes. So
Okay.
in that way, it's a
How,
victory.
how would they figure that out?
It was a special machine where you would stand on it, and you know how
Oh,
they send the electrical current through you to see your water content versus fat content versus muscle content.
no.
Okay. Well, there's a machine, and they send out different frequencies of electricity through your system, and
Okay.
certain frequencies will come back at different densities. So the
Okay.
density of the fat on your lungs and liver and all of that stuff, probably not your lungs, but your liver, your heart, all your organs, is a different density of fat than what is on the outside, the adipose tissue. And so
Oh,
she said, yeah, this is how we know where your fat is. Maybe not which organs, but it's on your organs and what percentage is there and all of that. And yeah, this is a cancer research project that I've got involved in. So really
wow.
excited about that. Yeah. So every 5 years, they're going to check me, see if I've shrunk, and they do a measurement from your head to your butt. Like you sit down on a chair and they measure
Okay.
how tall you are, and then you stand up and they measure how tall you are, because they know
Oh,
that chances are, if you're going to lose height, it's going to be in your spine. So they're like,
okay.
yeah, we're just going to check and see how much of this is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just really fascinating
Yeah.
project
Yeah.
that
It sounds really
was.
interesting. You should do a show
Yeah,
on that sometime.
I should. I have
Yeah.
to find the information
I've
though.
never even heard of that.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was really cool to be able to say, okay, yeah, my viscera, my internal organs aren't in nearly as bad a shape as they could be.
Wow.
And definitely not as bad a shape as they used to be. That's
Right.
for sure.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
And that's where you need to be healthy is on the inside,
Yeah.
right? It's like our mothers used to say, "Oh, you're beautiful on the inside."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to
Whatever.
be beautiful out here too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know. I'd have never heard anything like that. So yeah, I'd be interested in
Yeah.
seeing you do something with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you anybody watching has an idea for another topic that you would like to discuss on this show, please let me know. If you have a particular interest or you have a particular skill set and you think that the world could benefit from your knowledge, or you feel misunderstood and you think you would like to be able to clarify certain things, please get in touch with me at myotherskeeper@gmail.com. I will not talk politics, but I plan on talking religion. I plan on talking health. I plan on talking mental health. I plan on talking about all sorts of different things. I have a list here of a whole pile of people and
Lots.
topics that I want to talk about. And if you are a person who you feel has something to add, please, I want to hear from you because I think the world needs to learn from each other so we don't scare each other, so we don't scare ourselves with misinformation. So thank you so much, Tess, for coming today.
Well,
Um,
thank you for having me. It was interesting.
well, and you know what? We probably still have a few hours worth that more that we could talk about. So we'll have to do this again sometime if you
All
like.
right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much. Have an awesome
Thank
evening.
you.
All
Thank you.
right.
Okay. Have a good night.
You too. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.